Welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. So, Jay, Coach Kenny Ellis has been very, very, very active on his social media. We saw him posting some training video between him and Gervonta Davis and basically showing some of the angles that, could be beneficial to Gervonta Davis in case he fights Lomachenko, which we fully expect that to be the next fight. Well, here recently, he has some things to say about Shakur Stevenson. Now, Shakur Stevenson, we've heard Gervonta Davis be somewhat critical of Shakur Stevenson, talk about the fact that, he tends to move a lot, thinks that if they were to fight, he'd run. Talked about that, he really doesn't slip shots and throw combinations and things of that nature. He just mostly moves back. I'm not so sure Shakur would just run. I'm not going to say that right now. I know he had a lackluster performance against Ghost, and I know he wants to blame it on injury. I don't believe that was the case, but I'm not going to just automatically assume that he'd run against Tank. I do believe, though, that Tank is right in regards to slipping shots, things of that nature, and countering from that. He tends to move backwards and not necessarily slip shots, catch shots, and then counter. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have the ability to do that. I'm just saying, like when Tank said that, I started to look, and it was like, yeah, he doesn't do that a lot. But Kenny Ellis talked about his upcoming opponent, who is Artem, and I can never say his last name, so I'm not going to attempt to try. But that is the former opponent of Frank Martin. Now, we know Gervonta Davis got criticized for fighting Frank Martin, and some of that criticism came from Shakur Stevenson, yet he's fighting Frank Martin leftovers. Go figure. But what Kenny Ellis had to say about this, Jay, was this, that Shakur Stevenson is going to have to stop Artem. And if he doesn't stop Artem, essentially he's the second best 135-pounder in the world. And he referenced Abdullah Mason, who he believes is the next rising star at 135 pounds. And if I'm remembering this correctly, I think he said, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, that Abdullah Mason would be the second best fighter at 135 pounds because he truly believes that Abdullah Mason would knock out Artem. And so that's an interesting take from Coach Kenny Ellis, saying that Shakur Stevenson needs to knock him out. We know Shakur doesn't have a lot of power. I do believe Shakur has been able to use his size to his advantage at 130 and to some extent 135. But he's not a big puncher. A lot of people like to compare him to Floyd in terms of his defensive prowess, but in reality, Floyd was a puncher at 35. I don't see Shakur as that. So I don't know if Coach Kenny Ellis is essentially setting Shakur up for failure in saying that, he needs to knock him out, or he's not even the second best 135-pounder in the world. Jay, if he doesn't knock him out, I would not go as far as to say that he's not the second best fighter in the world. I don't think that's true because we know he doesn't have knockout power. And a fighter doesn't necessarily have to have knockout power. They just have to be able to make you stay honest with their punching power. But if he doesn't perform well, at least up to the level of Frank Martin, I'm sorry, it is a measuring stick. And all the trash talk that he had for Frank Martin in regards to who he's fought, if he doesn't go in there and smoke Artem, like Artem is just not even on his level. And not only that, not just the commentary that he had for Frank Martin, Jay, but he also talked about, his skill level and the different level that he's on. And the fact that, he feels that, Frank Martin did better than what he would have expected, but he sees things through his own lens, and he's on a different level than all these other fighters, and therefore it's easy work for him, whereas it might not be easy work for another fighter. So when you talk in that manner, you got to simply back it up, right? And so he should go in there and absolutely smoke Artem based off of what he said. So he created a measuring stick by what he said, and people are going to hold him to it. So I'm not going to say that he has to knock Artem out, but he has to be dominant in his performance against Artem. He has to make Artem look like, I don't want to say an amateur, but look like what he basically said he was, which was not a fighter that's not up to par to be in the ring with somebody like himself. So, Jay, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Shakur knows the hell out of me. I think he's a very talented fighter, but he just got to the point where now he doesn't take constructive criticism very well. I'm not talking about people that's just hating on him just to hate on him. I'm just talking about people saying certain things that can make him a better fighter. Even stuff that he using his own words that he said that I wasn't scary in there. Ghost was scary too. Then trying to make it seem like, initially he was like he apologized for the performance, got to go back to the drawing board. Then all of a sudden he came back and turned. He's like, nah, I had a great performance when I look at it. That just shows how great I am. Dude, stop it. Artem hasn't fought since he fought Frank, and that's it'll be almost a year since Artem last fought. You talk bad about Artem and Frank, and you talk more bad about Frank than you do Artem, but you're fighting someone that Frank beat. Frank beat this dude already. This dude is 33 years old, only has 13 professional fights right now. He was a bronze medalist at the same Olympics you were, a silver medalist at a higher weight class. But that was back in 2016, dude. I mean, come on. 2016 or 2020, I forget which one it was. My bad. You have to correct me on that. But Shakur just needs to go in the ring and handle business like he should. But he needs to calm himself and humble himself a little bit, because he talks like he's done stuff to top fighters over and over again, or he's knocking people out left and right. And that's not the case. He's not doing that. I wouldn't have as much criticism. I wouldn't be on Shakur so tough if he wasn't talking like he just is a dominant force like that. I understand being confident, but dude, you talking like you knocking people out like Tank, or being very crafty in the ring like Boots is, where Boots was knocking people out. Hell, even like Bud, but you're not doing that none of those. So I mean, show up on July 6th, handle business, and then move on to the next. But don't try to. He even put Ghost in his top 4 as far as lightweights right now, to try to make himself that much better. He'll probably put Artem at number 5 at 135 to make himself look that much better. Hey, look, I fought top 2 of the top 5 because I'm number 1, Tank's number 2, Loma's number 3. So I'm just tired of Shakur right now, as far as the antics on Twitter saying that he was going to be retired, talk this and talk that. Dude, just back it up in the ring. I think you're very talented. I think you can back most of it in the ring, but you just running around circles talking noise about certain people that's already beaten the guy that you're fighting, and it doesn't make sense to me right now. Does he back up more than he slipped? Yeah. Tank pointed that out, and the more you watch his fights, you realize that's what Shakur is really doing. He's more doing a little baby hop or a major hop back versus slipping most of the time. And he's been bigger than most of his opponents, like Oscar Valdez. He was like 20 pounds heavier than Oscar Valdez in that fight too. So once he fights someone that can pop, we'll see what he does again, if he does again like he did with Ghost. Because Ghost could pop. He's a counterpuncher, and he was very cautious, even with a bad hand, but he was extra cautious than he was running that fight. It wasn't just boxing.
Yep, agreed. So you guys tell us what you think in the comments section about what Coach Kenny Ellis had to say. Jay, I understand your perspective on it. Kind of remind me a little bit of Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner was basically tooting his own horn right from the beginning, as though he was on the same level as somebody like Floyd Mayweather. Similarly, I see Shakur Stevenson tooting his own horn as though he's on the same level of a Bud Crawford, and he's not. He definitely has the talent to get there, but he's already talking like as though he's there, and I think that's what really annoys you. Doesn't really annoy me as much, but it is what it is. Let us know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to hate, like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Angry Man Podcast, AM Sports Media, and we are out.